Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is going to be part 6 of my peer review on Terrence Howard's book. And if you're not caught up, you might want to go to the entire playlist and start from part 1. Part 1, I go over some of the intro stuff here about the author, and then part 2, I actually go over this entire page, which took me a really long time. And currently we've been on the chapter about established laws of thermodynamics. Let me scroll way down, go to his table of contents. So he's got laws of thermodynamics, and then the next thing he does is a brief history of Babylonian logic and a glimpse into their daily lives. And that's kind of where I put the cutoff then. Like, once the Babylonian stuff starts, that's where I'm like, oh, okay, he's done with that chapter. To preface this a little bit, you're not going to learn anything from this book. It's completely ridiculous. If you think about the word ridiculous, it really means worthy of ridicule or deserving of ridicule. And that's exactly what we're doing. We're ridiculing this book. It's awful. It's one of the worst things ever written, but it's also one of the most interesting books that's freely available online. So, there's been a lot of stuff probably coming up on your YouTube thing. There's been a lot of things about politics recently. If you want to kind of clear your head of all the politics stuff and cuddle up with a good book, this is not a good book, but it's interesting. And if you want to continue to watch me tear apart some of his bad logic and stupid math, then yeah, let's get right back into it. Real quick, just to review, again, we're on this chapter. What I'm doing is I'm highlighting stuff in green if I think it's correct or if I agree with it, highlighting stuff in pink if it's incorrect or I disagree, and then stuff that's just confusing or whenever he uses an undefined term, I'm highlighting it in yellow. So again, you're probably going to be a little bit lost if you haven't seen the previous videos. I do have an entire playlist. This is part 6 now. If you're interested in all of this book, it's really interesting. I'm not going to lie, it is. Maybe not interesting in the way that you would think that it would be interesting, or the way that he thinks that it would be interesting. The same way that in his Light of the World, he was like, people told me that this might cause challenges in my life. Yeah, not because you're disrupting the system or, causing a big... not because it's actually true or important in any way. It's causing challenges in his life by releasing this book because it's awful. And he is going to be mocked endlessly online for releasing this book. I do have the link in the description if you want to go browse it. Take like a minute to browse this book and you'll understand that it's complete nonsense. You don't even need to know math or science to understand that this book is complete nonsense. So let's get right back into it. This is part 6. Okay, so I got to figure out where I left off here last. It looks like this paragraph right here. So the number 1, here's something weird. Well, I don't know why he puts, there's a lot of weird stuff with punctuation going on. I'm not sure why he puts these numbers in like square brackets. Yeah, and then sometimes he doesn't put them in square brackets, so it's really weird. It's just really inconsistent. Like, I'm not sure. His notation is inconsistent. The thing about math and science, and like a lot of science is based on mathematical symbols, and notation matters a lot because like you have to be specific. It's like a language. All right, let's read. The number 1 is valueless if it does not affect itself or even a zero space for that matter. Zero space. 0 space. I guess he's got the number 0 and then the word. It almost sounds like something from linear algebra, right? Like a vector space. I don't think it is. It doesn't ring a bell to me, the term 0 space. If you want to think of it in maybe in linear algebra terms, like it being a vector space with 0 dimension. I'm not really sure how to interpret that. For if you multiply 1 times 0, it equals 0. Oh, look. Okay, that's correct. I'll agree with that. I agree. Which in itself is a direct violation of the laws concerning conservation of energy. Great. So I agreed with something, and then he just completely shot me down. Okay, so it's not a direct violation of that law. That's incorrect. It's very incorrect. We've talked about this before. Conservation of energy. It is one of the laws of thermodynamics, but it's not being violated by a simple equation. It's weird because it's like he's saying, oh, look, if you do that, then you get 0, the number 1 disappeared. The energy of the 1 disappeared, whatever that means. So it kind of begs the question. I kind of want to ask him, like, hey, if I just wrote that down, right? Hey, look, I just erased it. Oh my God, I just violated the law of conservation of energy. Like, is that where his mind is? I'm really trying to figure out. Why he thinks that, like, multiplying by 0 is destroying energy. The law states energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be transferred or transformed into another state. This is what we have observed in natural phenomena. This is reality. Okay, I agree with that. Like, yeah, this is reality, Terry. Like, we're living in reality. This is reality. This is real. So how can something times nothing equal nothing? How can something just disappear because it encountered a non-thing? Okay, well, non-thing is not a term. He made that up. It's so weird to me that he is saying these placeholder words like something and nothing. He just complained about 0 being a placeholder, which it's not just that. But what's so weird about this, from someone, with a math background, this would be so much easier just to say it in math. Like, instead of saying something and nothing, like, that's why we have symbols. Like, if you want to say something, then make it a variable. I could say, how can something times nothing equal nothing? So something times nothing, which is 0, equals nothing. Isn't that a lot easier to write than putting, like, capital word something and capital word nothing? It's strange. I guess, like, he already disagrees with 1 times 0 equals 0, so he decided to elaborate with words. But yeah, it becomes a non-thing because, multiplying by 0 is just a representation. It's just like language. It's just like saying, I don't have any of that stuff. There is none. That's what it means. The very notion of this impossible scenario suggests that if one was to travel too far down a plane, at some point that individual will encounter the end of that plane and enter into a non-space. Ooh, wow. So non-space is also not a real term. He made that up. In a non-space, a place where the laws of the universe cease to exist, as per the identity property, LOL. He put LOL. This is... he literally wrote LOL. It's... wow. I almost feel like I disagree with his usage of LOL in a scientific paper, if that's what this is. Laws of the universe cease to exist as per the identity property. That is not at all what the identity property is saying, that the laws of the universe cease to exist. That's absolutely ridiculous. So what does he say here? Travel too far down a plane. At some point, an individual will encounter the end of that plane and enter into a non-space. So, wow, this is difficult. This is difficult to interpret. I think there's another grammar error here. The very notion of this impossible scenario suggests. The very notion, one thing, would not suggest, it would suggests, right? Subject-verb agreement. The very notion suggests, not suggest. So, yeah, he doesn't like multiplying by 0. He calls it impossible. It's very possible. An individual at some point I don't know, walks off of... He's going really close to flat Earth here. Like, what's he talking about? Walking off the face of the Earth? Why is he... How does that imply that? It just makes no sense. Okay. Anything foolish enough to venture past that point that doesn't exist, yeah, will themselves fall into an abyss or a place of non-space. Is this like a 1980s horror movie? Like, what's going on? Because that is exactly what zero is, an empty space. That's not true. Okay, hold up. Zero is an empty space? First of all, numbers are not space. We can use coordinates to define locations in, two-dimensional, three-dimensional space. But numbers themselves are not space. If he would be like, maybe like the origin 0, 0, he's like, that's an empty space. Even though that's not true either, but at least it would be a location. At least it would be a point in space. So I completely disagree with the word empty. Because he's thinking of null. He's thinking of the empty set. Right? If you go back to like set theory, the set that contains no objects, a set that contains nothing, is null. Let me write this. This is called null. This is just a coordinate. The thing is, null is not the same thing as zero. Null is a set that contains no elements. You could say the size of null, or the cardinality of null, the empty set, is equal to 0. The size of it, or the length of it, or the cardinality of it is how many elements does it contain. The empty set contains 0 elements. So that's another way that 0 is a great description of other things. 0 is a great description of how many elements are in this empty set. This line of reasoning is undoubtedly a holdover from the days of ignorance, when primitive man believed that the world was flat. Okay, let me just try to finish this sentence. And that if one went too far, this is misspelled. It should be TOO, right? I'm not wrong about this. Fact check me in the comments if you need to. Too far past that forbidden edge, they would fall into the nothing world. The nothing world. New undefined term. Somebody keeping count? A place where nothing exists. Another subject-verb disagreement. Nothing exists. With an S at the end. Exists. A dangerous consequence of having the world's mathematics, sciences, and economy based upon superstition and false axioms. He capitalizes all these subjects and the word world. Mathematics, sciences, and economy based upon superstition. Yeah. Our math is superstition. What an idiot. And then false axioms. Well, the thing about axioms is that they are definitions. Like, theories are built based on axioms. So they're actually not true nor false. They're actually true. Like, axioms are... what's the word? Self-evident, I guess? Self-evident, is that a good description of axiom? So in an axiomatic theory, you have to lay the ground rules. You have to be like, okay, here's what we accept as truth in this theory for all the other parts of this theory to work. So that's what an axiom is. Again, we have a conspicuous example of mathematics violating the very laws of physics that it vehemently claims to uphold and swears, through mathematics, the beauty of the natural world is expressed in all of its equations. That is in single quotes. I'm not sure if that's a quote from somebody else. It seems that way, but So this is also a misstatement. Okay, well, the fact that mathematics violates physical laws is one misstatement. And then another misstatement is that math claims to uphold the laws of physics. Like, we use mathematics to describe the laws of physics. We don't use mathematics to uphold the laws of physics. Right? There's a weird dependent-independent thing going on there. Like cause and effect, right? Like, mathematics is the underlying language of physics, you could say. But that doesn't mean that if you can show something mathematically that, that it were to violate the laws of physics. No, I don't know how to say this correctly. I almost want to, it's going to sound dumb. I almost want to say, like, with math, all things are possible. That also sounds religious, but like, what I mean is you can create number systems or even different rules and things mathematically. Like, you can create a, sixth dimensional vector space or metric space that defines a sixth dimensional world that has like no practical applications to anything real or anything that is observable in science. Like, mathematics is completely theoretical. It's like saying, oh, if I write... All right, let me make an analogy here. Let's see. So the first law of thermodynamics is energy cannot be created or destroyed, summarizing. So what if I wrote energy can be created? Let's just end it there. Say energy can be created, right? I've stated something that's not true. Now do I go out and say, oh, the English language violated the rules of physics, so we should stop using the English language? Like, stop using English letters because, look, oh my God, these English letters are lying to us. So destroy the English language. That's what he's saying. That's what his argument is here with math. He's like, there's some math out there that I can say or that I can use to demonstrate something that's not true in physics. Well, yeah, I can use English words to also demonstrate something that's not true in physics. So there's really not a big connection of cause and effect there. Like, we come up with equations, which, by the way, most of them use letters and variables, not just numbers. We come up with those to describe things that are happening in the physical sciences. And just all around us, just patterns. That's all math is, just patterns. All right, that was kind of a rant. Every wave must follow the wave that precedes it, unless that wave is acted upon by another wave. This is a law made by nature. What the hell does that mean? What is going on here? Every wave must follow the wave that precedes it. The wave is the wave that comes before it, unless that wave is acted upon by another wave. That kind of sounds like Newton's first law, right? Inertia, like if something's in motion, it tends to stay in motion unless it's acted on by an outside force. I think he just stole that and just put the word wave in it. But I'm not sure what the whole preceding means. Does he mean like if you have, I guess, different parts of a wave, like I don't know, like this wave has to come before this wave. That's not even a wave. It's like a peak. The peak and trough reminds me of his About the Author. Okay, so wow. I'm gonna mark that as confusing. Because again, it sounds like he just kind of plagiarized Newton's first law, but put the word wave in there. Here's my point. Oh, thank God he's getting to the point. Here's my point. Every number that follows the number 1 is a product of the number 1. Then shouldn't those subsequent numbers, which are nothing more than a collection of many ones, behave like the number 1? Let me read this whole paragraph. Since the number 1 is in fact their, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, progenitor? progeny means like children, so I guess that would be like a father, parent type. Progenitor, or someone that gave birth to something. Their patriarch, the object of their reflection, and the very foundation and nature of their entire being. Should not those reproductions of the number 1 be susceptible to the weaknesses and strengths of the number 1? Oh my God. Wow. Wow. So, let's get it out of the way now, because we all know he doesn't know the difference between addition and multiplication. So, like, every number can be expressed as adding up a bunch of ones. Like 3 is 1 plus 1 plus 1. I don't think I have to keep doing this for very long before you get my point. Yes, you can deconstruct everything into a sum of ones, and everything's divisible by 1 because when you divide something by 1, it doesn't change. But again, that's the identity property. He doesn't like that. So, and now he's saying, we would normally factor 3 as 1 times 3. He would, because it's prime. It's just 1 times itself. But he would factor it as 1 times 2 because of his weird, stupid math that doesn't work. And I talked about this in a previous video where I was talking about 1 times 1 fully debunked, where you can get this 2 and you can divide that into ones, right? And someone was trying to make a point that, like a blue highlighter, that, you could actually break things down into a bunch of ones just being multiplied. And that's how, like, Terrence-Howard math could work. If we consider 1 to be the only prime number, then we still have prime factorization. That actually doesn't work. There's several different counterexamples that you can find where you can, depending on how you factor a number, you can get a different composition of a number of ones. I think I actually factored 8. I factored 8, and I came up with like 1 to the 8th, and then 1 to the, 1 to the 7th I also got, and then 1 to the 6th. I think I got all of these. I'm not showing that right now, but using this sort of awful, bad math that doesn't work, you can factor a number, you can break it apart into a bunch of different ones, but in different ways that violate unique factorization. If we were going to, say that 1's the only prime number and all that good stuff. The point of this, there is no point. He starts it off with, here's my point. Wait, I don't want to give it green. Confusing. Here's my point. So he's saying because, and let's assume that this is true. Let's assume that this antecedent here is true. Let's assume that he's saying, yeah, if 1 can be broken, if every number can be broken down into a bunch of ones, shouldn't those numbers have properties of the number 1? My answer to that is no. Like, every number has different properties. In fact, the one property that they share is that they can be broken down into unique prime factors. That's the fundamental theorem of arithmetic. But, like, there's even numbers, there's powers of 2, there's powers of, there's perfect squares, there's prime numbers, there's multiples of 3, there's things that share a common factor, there's things that are, there's so many different properties of numbers. So just because something is made up of ones doesn't mean that it's just the number 1. Like, it doesn't have the same properties as the number 1. I think he's ignoring a lot of the main properties of the number 1 because we call those properties the identity element properties, like the identity principle, the identity element, the identity property, and he doesn't like any of that. He's already put up a racist cartoon about Jim Crow, and so he's that much against the number 1 and the identity property. So he's not going to admit to anything dealing with the identity property. I don't know. He thinks it's racist or something. Oh boy. Y'all picked a long chapter in that poll. I'm not going to lie. A long and confusing one. And one that, yeah, Jesus. I like this. This is kind of cool, this little graphic. I don't know how many more videos this is going to take, y'all, but I'm prepared to get through thermodynamics, Terrence Howard style, before the summer's over, hopefully. So, continue to watch. Thanks, everyone. Please like if you like the video. Please comment if you would like to. Oh, by the way, leave a timestamp in the comment if you have something specific to say, because that makes it easier for me to go back and look at the video. Anyway, I don't want to ramble too much, so there you go. Like and subscribe if you enjoy the content or if you appreciate it. It's not taking me that much effort to make these videos, but you know, I mean, it takes time. They're all recorded live, and then I barely edit them. Anyway, we'll see you in the next one. Have fun.